heck, I'll do another live video. I got my background all changed and completed, as I just did the video earlier tonight showing the new background. And it's for things like this. So when I'm doing a video, I can have something in the background. I do like the Apple screensaver better than the actual video I showed, so I'll probably be using that with the same pictures in the near future, because then it fills the screen better and just fits better. But for right now, I'll just use this one. It's cool. But anyway, I want to talk to you guys about when I first got into Masters of the Universe. So take you back a long time ago. And a friend and I, we used to hang out all the time and have fun doing things. And we would go to the store called Kmart. Kmart. And so one time my friend and I had some money. Mostly I had money in my pocket. And we ended up going to Kmart to find something cool to buy. And while we were there walking down the toy aisles, I remember being separated from my friend for a little bit, and I saw the coolest toy ever in the world, this He-Man figure, and I was like, oh, that's so cool looking. He didn't have any armor on, he didn't have his weapons or anything else. He was just sitting on the shelf out of the box, and I picked him up so excitedly, and I showed my friend. I said, oh, look at this, look at this. He goes, yeah, that's He-Man, he's lame. And I ended up getting Zoids that day. And I remember kind of regretting that after that, because I thought he was just so cool. My friend talked me out of him. And it actually wouldn't be for quite a while later. I don't want to get into some sad sob story, but as a kid, my parents didn't have a lot of money and stuff. So the idea of getting like a He-Man figure would be pretty rare. And so I didn't get one for a long time. And I remember seeing kids having them once in a while. I even saw some kid even take and smash his on the road, and it got ran over by a car because it just didn't mean nothing to him. And to me, it was like, I just want one, just one. So finally I got one, and my first figure was Skeletor. Skeletor was my first figure I got, and I was hoping to really make He-Man my first figure. Now, they did have Faker there, and I almost bought Faker because he was a blue He-Man. I figured, that'd be cool to get. But I remember when I first got Skeletor, I thought he was so cool. Now, this time, I still have not seen the cartoon. I have no idea about the cartoon at all, but I just had my first figure. And I remember walking him around all over the apartment, having him crawl on the back of the couch like he was mountain climbing and stuff. And at the time, my sister just got a stereo, and she had the boxes still sitting around. And I had him like holding the box up because of all his cool muscles. And I remember in my mind thinking, this blue hulking creature, guy is going around the living room. And in the corner of the boxes that held the speakers, there were these foam pieces. And if you can imagine a cube with a cube cut out of it to fit the foam piece. Well, I took two of those and I put them together and glued them and made a little throne. And I used that throne for years with the two foam pieces. They were kind of black foam, where he would sit in the two square pieces put together with the squares cut out. And that was his main throne that he would direct things out of. Now, he was the only He-Man figure I had for a little while, but I did have an E.T. figure too. And so I used to put Skeletor's armor on E.T. and other crazy stuff too. But I remember as a kid, see if I can find one now. Here we go. Being I did not have a He-Man, I only had a Skeletor. When I looked at his sword, I thought it was the weirdest thing, because one side was flat and the other side was round. I didn't understand how it totally worked. I just figured that it was a cheap manufacturing thing, because they only wanted to mold half the sword. And I also had the half boot Skeletor, just like this one is. This is not my original one. This is actually a commemorative one. And so I thought they couldn't figure out how to paint the other half. It was the same way that they did a cheap paint job and a flat sword. And even if you take the armor off, the armor on the inside's flat too. So I just figured, it was just the way they manufactured it. And it's funny because, now, of course, I know. So as time went on, I actually got some more He-Man figures. And I don't remember the exact order I got them in, but let's see. I remember I did get a Zodak. I did get a Triclops. And who else did I get? I didn't get Manny Faces till later. I'm trying to think who else I got. I don't remember if I got a Trap Jaw or not. But I remember when I used to play, because I didn't have a He-Man and now I started watching the cartoons, this became my He-Man figure. Because he was my only Caucasian colored figure that I had at the time. And so I pretended like he was wearing a mask. Almost like, you know, one of those wrestlers you see. And so this was my He-Man for a very, very long time. And it was kind of funny. So I had my Skitator, who was my favorite forever because he was the first one, and then my He-Man figure, which was really Zodak, but he worked. He worked. So as time went on, I got some other figures, but I never got a He-Man for quite a while. Hey, thanks for joining me, Black Phoenix 77. And one day, many years, well, it seemed like many years, probably just months later, but it was around Christmas time, and I remember I was supposed to be buying a present for my sister, and I was at JCPenney's, and they had this guy right here. And he was still in the package, and on the back of the package, it showed that he would get hit, and he would have 1 or 2 strikes, and then you took your thumb and somehow magically massaged it over his chest, and bada bing, bada boom, it would repair. And so I was trying to figure out how in the world it could do this. And it was driving me crazy looking at the box in line, trying to figure out how does he repair this. So I figured some kind of clay type stuff. Like maybe you took the sword and as you scratched it across his chest, it would make the dent. And then you would take your thumb and massage the dent out and get it back to normal. Like some kind of slime underneath there, some kind of putty type situation or something else. So, but I ended up, this is not the best story ever. I ended up taking my sister's present and putting it back and not buying it, and instead buying my first actual He-Man, which was Battle Armor He-Man. And that's how I got Battle Armor He-Man, was I did not buy my sister's gift. Now, later on, before Christmas, I actually did get my sister a present. I got her a Cabbage Patch doll, but it was funny. So my first He-Man was actually Battle Armor He-Man. And so Battle Armor He-Man is like one of my favorite He-Man figures they made for He-Man, because he was my first He-Man figure. So finally I had He-Man and I had Skitator, and then I started to get more and more figures at that time as time went on. Now it's kind of funny because one of the last figures I picked up from the main 8 at the beginning was actually Beastman. Now, when I first saw Beastman, I saw his face. I remember walking into a drugstore, like I think it was Bartell Drugs or something, or I don't know what it was. And I was just looking for He-Man figures. And again, I didn't know who was who in the zoo, because at that time I wasn't really watching the cartoon much. But I was thinking he was a clown guy. I didn't know he was supposed to be a monster beast, Beastman. I should have known by the name Beastman, but you know, I was just looking at the pictures and not really reading the names. I just saw this orange guy with this clown makeup on his face. I'm like, I don't want some stinky clown. It's the only 2 moto figures I had as a kid were Trapjaw and Triclops. I guess that's why they always were my favorite characters. Yes. Yes, Revolving Armor would have been awesome for Masterverse. It would have been great. Hey, Gnomeski, thanks for joining me. Been a minute. Yes, it has. So, I did eventually get Beastman, and mostly just to be somebody that He-Man could throw around and stuff. But at the time, my He-Man was him, so it was kind of weird. But anyway, he would throw Beastman all over the place, because that was kind of what his job was to be stooge to be beaten up. So it's kind of funny. Is again, he was one guy I really want. Now, one guy I did want really bad, really bad, was Merman. Now, I loved Merman for some reason. I'm not sure why. I don't know if he had the same body as Skeletor or what it was, but I've always liked Aquaman too. I've kind of always been attracted to the beach and the seas, and so Merman was just a perfect fit for me. In fact, it's funny, Merman was also my oldest boy's first He-Man figure as well. In fact, I got him Merman, and I got him what is it? The big blue vehicle, Battle Ram. Hold on a second. Yes. There we go. Here's one of the original Battle Ram. So my oldest boy, his first He-Man exposure was these two guys together. And it sounds funny, is when my kids were little, I never wanted to tell them the names of these figures. And so they had to come up with names themselves and their factions. I didn't tell they were good guys or bad guys. And the one I got from my son was from a secondhand store, and so his toes were missing. And I actually used a hot glue gun and put it on the feet, and when whoop, it made little toes off of it, making out of hot glue. And I think the bow was missing too. I think I made something for that as well. But he ended up calling his guy Fred, and Fred was a good guy. So Merman in my son's world was a good guy named Fred, and he rode this vehicle around all the time. And again, they did not know what He-Man was until they were in high school, because they had some friends that knew who he was, and they're like, Dad, it's so weird, we didn't know. There was a whole story behind it. But I wanted them to use their own imagination instead of me telling them how to play with their toys and who should be what. But it's cool. They'd mix this with their G.I. Joes and everything else too. It was a lot of fun. Anyway, back to my story as a kid. So when I was starting to get these figures, one time I was like really, really sick. And I slept for days for some reason. I'm not sure why. And I remember my mom woke me up. And she says, hey, we're going to the Army PX stores. There's something you want. And I'm laying in bed, just dying. And I remember taking the back of one of my boxes and circling two figures. And those two figures were Man-at-Arms and Man-E-Faces. And my mom ended up buying me those two figures because I was so sick. And I remember I got up and I wasn't sick anymore for some strange reason. And, oh, hey, good night, Deluxorian. And I played with the heck out of these two guys, all my other figures. And man, for a long time, Man-E-Faces, Man-at-Arms was one of my favorites because of that. But it was such a cool memory to have my mom pick up those two figures for me from the PX. That was awesome. And I remember just sitting there, just turning the heads over and over and over again on Man-E-Faces. I thought that was so cool. And then I remember also one of my early figures, which before I got these, was actually Ramman. And I remember Ramman was pretty cool because, you know, he has that awesome feature where he can knock people over. But when I looked at him, he did not look like the same aesthetic as all the other figures. So, of course, in my child mind, which, you know, saw the flat swords and how it was produced and everything else, I just assumed this was from a different toy line that they happened to repurpose for Masters of the Universe. Because the arms are different, the articulation's different, it's completely different than any other figure we've seen before. And so I thought that was so crazy how different he was. Well, kind of find out, he was actually made just for Masters of the Universe. He was actually designed, he's like, you know, one of the main figures that was purposely designed for the line. In fact, let me show you some pictures. Hold on, let me get the book. The book of knowledge. Now, of course, everything's backwards. I apologize for that because I'm live streaming and I can't reverse the video. But in the Power and Honor Foundation, you got to read it backwards. Power and Honor Foundation. They have the original Ramman designs. See if I can find them in here. Let's see what we can find in here. Oh, there he is. Is that him? Yes. Yes. Look at that. See the little jumping feature? And that's how it looked like originally, with those giant horns and stuff. And you can see the feature of how he can move. And so they actually literally designed him just for Masters of the Universe. He was made to be a Masters character, which really surprised me because, like I said, his aesthetic is so different. I'd have no idea he's supposed to be an actual Masters of the Universe part of the same set. I just figured it's leftovers. We see it all the time with Mattel. You know, we see them take figures and repurpose them for other lines. We've seen it with Demolition Man. They used a lot of Masters New Adventures figures for that. We've seen it with the Wonder Woman line. They used She-Ra figures for that. There was some other line too. I forgot what it was, but they used like parts of the slime pit and stuff. Hey, Israel, thanks for joining us. Anyway, he became one of my favorites for a long time. They all became my favorites for a long time because of this cool feature here. I'd line up figures and wham, knock them all over. I even tried to make my own Ramman video game one time. I got a little bit distance on it, never finished it, but it was a really cool looking. I actually designed him in 3D and had him so he could run and chop and everything else, but I never finished the game. Anyway, it's just so funny how simple he is. I mean, articulation points, he has 2. 1, 2. Because this really is not an articulation point. It doesn't actually rotate or anything. It just goes in and out. But it's funny to think he only has 2 articulation points. Now, if you count his axe, it can spin in his hand. Then you have 3. But really, it's removable. So he is, at best, 1, 2, 3 articulation points. If you really counted this as 1. But it doesn't actually move. And it's fun to always make him jump. I remember as I was collecting these as an adult, I ended up getting a whole ton of Ramman. When you buy someone's collection, they have Ramman in there all the time. And pretty soon I had like 11 or 12 of these guys. And I remember I'd line them up like dominoes and take it and jump, knock them all over with the first guy. What if He-Man met recent characters like Finn and Jake? I don't know. That'd be kind of interesting. Yep, you finally caught a live one, man. I never saw that concept before. Cool, I'm glad I could show you something new. So, let's look at Stratos. Now, Stratos was an interesting one when I was a kid. Because he, of course, is the same body as Beastman. But he didn't come with any accessories. He did come with a cool jetpack. And this jetpack ended up going on lots of heroes at different times and everything else. Because it was kind of a fun, cool idea of putting a jetpack on someone. So I remember jetpack ended up with a never Skeletor. He always went on good guys. So the good guys would get to share his cool jetpack whenever they could. But it's weird that the connections were on the front instead of being on the back like everybody else. But for some reason, even though this guy's really cool looking, I never really bonded with him. He's not in my top 11. He's just not a guy that I would actually pull out excitement about and use. He would just be there. He'd just be like an extra. He'd be just sitting there as an extra guy. All right, let's move on to Teela. Now, Teela was an interesting one because I got her before Prince Adam existed because she was an early release figure. But in the comics, there was 2 different Teelas. You had the green Teela, which was supposed to be like the magic one, but the magic one also had the headdress like this. So when I was a kid, I only had 1 Teela, not 2 like this. And what I would do is I would take the armor off and on. And I'd pretend like she was Warrior Teela, and then she put the armor on, cha-ching, and she'd become Magical Teela. And nobody in my toy line when I was playing knew that she was the same person. So she would magically transform to her, and then she would have the superpowers of all her magical stuff she could do. And then she'd back into this Teela. And what's funny about this is she was the one that would transform when I would play and mess around, where I didn't have Prince Adam at the time. And so there was no transformation of He-Man because he didn't change back into Prince Adam. He would just stay He-Man all the time. But my Teela was the one that would transform between the magical Teela and the regular Teela back and forth when no one's watching. I mean, she didn't have a magical word when I'd play. I'd just take the armor and swap it around. And then all of a sudden, she would go from warrior to magic user. And so that was kind of the crazy difference. Kind of cool. All right, so got something. Did I throw it away? I did throw it away. Oh, my garbage is right here. Perfect. Let me just dig out of the garbage here. I thought I took it down. Here it is. This picture. Now, my first vehicle I got was the Battle Ram. And I remember just staring at this picture for hours, looking at Beastman with that battle axe and that shield. I thought that was so cool. And so my Beastman always had a battle axe in his hand and the shield from the weapons pack. Now, usually he had the blue battle axe that's from the weapons pack too. And I just love that idea of him having that. And so even now today, you'll see my giant Beastman is also sporting his battle axe because of this picture right here. And I remember just staring at this box art. I actually stared at it quite a lot in the store for hours before I actually got the toy. I remember we'd go to different stores like Kmart or Fred Meyer's or somewhere else. And I remember finding the He-Man aisle, finding the box of the Battle Ram, and just sitting there the whole time while my mom was shopping or whatever, and check that out. It's a disgrace to Origins didn't have a full battle. Yeah, that does kind of stink about Origins and the Battle Ram. Definitely. But I remember thinking it was so cool. Now, as a kid, I never did own Castle Grayskull, but I do want to talk about that. So, here's what's funny. So here I am, a young kid. At this time, I did not have any He-Man figures at all. And I remember what I really, really wanted was a computer. I wanted a computer more than anything for some crazy reason as a kid. And back then, the computer of the day was the VIC-20, Commodore VIC-20. And I remember telling everybody, don't buy me toys, don't buy me clothes, Christmas, birthdays, whatever. Just give me money so I can buy a computer. Nobody took me seriously, and the only person that did was my dad, who I didn't know very well as a kid. He sent me $100. So now I had $100 in my hand. And I remember I'd walk down to the store called Jafco, which later on became renamed Best. And in the store, they had, and remember, I've already seen He-Man at this time at Kmart, but I haven't bought him yet. I didn't have him yet, and I really wanted him. They had Castle Grayskull and a bunch of figures, and I started calculating. Okay, $100, I can get a castle and 5 figures, or I can just get figures and forget the castle. And I remember looking in the store, and I probably spent, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour just calculating the way I could spend this $100 that would be the coolest for me to get. And I remember just dying, and I thought to myself, no, you got this money to buy a computer, and that's what I really wanted. And the computer at the time was $299, so I only had 1/3 of the money. And so I walked out of the store, leaving all the He-Man figures behind that I really, really wanted for my future of getting a computer so I could head towards the direction I need to go in my life. And I remember I eventually, kind of a longer roundabout story, I eventually got a paper route, and once I got my $300, I got my VIC-20, and that launched me down my path of computers. So kind of cool, kind of funny, but again, it was a super hard choice for a kid to sit there with $100 in my pocket, just burning a hole, and deciding to not get the easy, fun route, which would be the figures, and thinking about my potential future and getting the computer. Hold on, I gotta cover my light. It's really bright. Hold on. Oh, this tape doesn't stick. Okay, hopefully that works a little better. There we go. It's not quite as bad. Yes, great life lesson. It was tough. It was really hard to decide to do that. All right, one of my favorite figures, is not my top 11, is this guy right here. I remember when I got him, I thought he was so cool. Now, if you don't know who this is Cyclone. And one of the fun things I used to love to do with this guy, as you guys have seen on the videos, is I'd use like a puppet to beat people up. Huh, huh. And it was so much fun to do that, to actually control the slapping, punching feature. And I remember my mom ever said, you can grab one figure. Hey, hello, thanks for joining us. Time's gone by. Is I would grab this guy right here and fly him all over the car while my mom was in the store. And he was just always a fun figure, because him by himself is a one-man army. I mean, he could go out and bam, 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 beat everybody up like the Flash and fly away. And so he was always just a really fun figure to just play with all by himself. Now, it is funny how small his little fists are. Oh, his fists of fury. But I used to love the lenticular lens to make it go back and forth. Oh yeah, look at that. Fun, fun, fun. All right, let's see who else is in this box. Oh, Faker. Faker. Now, I don't think I ever did get Faker as a kid. I don't think I actually got one until I became an adult. So I don't remember the whole sticker thing, but this is a commemorative one. And the commemorative one did not come with the sticker. Yeah, boo, hiss. It's funny, the commemorative line is missing a few things, like his sticker, and it also didn't come with a hook for Triclops. So those of us had to go out and buy them. So I actually bought a third-party sticker. There it is. And it's kind of cool. It's actually a cloth sticker, and it works really good. It actually conforms to his chest nice. And so then my Faker was complete from the commemorative line. But yeah, as a kid, I had no interest in Faker. I did have a Jitsu. I don't have one here in the box with me, but Jitsu was always fun too. He was really cool. It's kind of funny. He actually looked like one of my mom's boyfriends, so I actually called him John because that was the guy's name. But it was kind of funny. Jitsu. When my kids had Jitsu, they used to call him $1 Million Hand because they didn't know what his name actually was. All right, as a kid, I never had a battle cat. Oh, but I did have a cat. And so I would take my real He-Man, and at the time my cat was a kitten, his name was Tom, and he was awesome. And I would take and put battle cat, He-Man, onto my real cat and put a rubber band along his bottom of his legs here, and my cat would lay and roll over, and it's like, come on, go do something, you know, and the cat would just kind of roll and wouldn't actually gallop with He-Man on his back. It would have been really awesome, he would have, but he didn't. But it's still fun putting He-Man on my cat's back. I had the coolest cat growing up. He had a sister. The sister cat was not too cool. Her name was Karen. Yes, my cat's names were Tom and Karen. Not Tom and Jerry. All right, let me switch my lights out. This one has died. All right. Nothing but light problem. So, Evelyn. Somehow I got an Evelyn. I don't remember when or where, but I remember having her because she was Teela's counterpart. When I was a kid, not too much to do about Evelyn. She was just always standing next to Skeletor, sitting on his throne made of foam from that speaker box. And that was pretty much about it. She would basically just stand next to him. She wouldn't really go into battles or anything else. She was just kind of I guess, Skeletor's trophy countess standing next to him all the time. And he would never go either. He would always just sit on his throne. Actually, it's funny. This is kind of funny. So, let me explain. Let me do some explaining. So, we had a separate room for the animals, for the cat and stuff. And so that room would be my my Castle Grayskull. And I would block the door off with boxes, and I would cut a box out and make the Castle Grayskull door. So once you got through the door, the whole room was the castle. So my castle was huge. It was the size of a small bedroom. And then my Snake Mountain was actually our kitchen table. And I would go under the table, and it had the chair seats. The chair seats would be lower than the top, and that's where I put Skeletor's throne, is up on one of the chair seats. And so he'd be sitting, if you crawled under the table, he'd be sitting on the chair with his throne made of foam from the speaker box, with Evelyn standing next to him. And then he would then commission all the bad guys to go and, you know, break into Castle Grayskull and beat up He-Man and Man-at-Arms and everybody else. But that was my Snake Mountain, was the kitchen table, and my Castle Grayskull was the spare bedroom for the cat. So that's kind of my crazy imagination that I used to do. So yeah, it worked really good. See, I always wondered why her hand was like that on the side. She's waving. I think it's supposed to be because she has the same hand as Teela, because obviously it's the same body. I think it's supposed to be like she's casting a spell or something, but it looks like she's waiting for someone to kiss her hand. You know, kiss the hand. But it doesn't look like she's waving, so she can high five. That's what it is. Hotcha! Anyway, but now you guys know too much. You're like, man, this guy's going on and on. But yes, Evelyn was cool. Now, I never knew her thing glowed in the dark. Now, I guess not everybody's did. I didn't find out till I was an adult, and then I had to go hunt one down that glows in the dark. This one does glow in the dark. The commemorative one did not come, and again, it's the commemorative figure, did not come with the glow in the dark. So you probably noticed all my figures are commemorative figures. And yes, I'm going to tell a sad sob story. So, I had a pretty rough, tough childhood, for those that have not heard my story before. And as a kid, I only had 15 minutes or less to grab everything I could to go on the run with my mom. And so my mom said, just take what you can carry. That's it. And so I grabbed 2 action figures, and they were Man-at-Arms and Skeletor. And I put them in a paper bag, and I stuck them in my coat pocket. And these are the only toys that survived from my childhood. These are not actually the ones I had, though, unfortunately. And so that was why I didn't have any more figures for a long time, because these are the only ones that made it out alive. And at the time, I did have Battle Armor He-Man, but if he was the regular He-Man, I would have probably grabbed him as well. Yeah, I had a lot of craziness in my childhood. So that's why most of the toys I have only one toy still left from my childhood that still exists, and that's my Baron Karza from Micronauts. And the reason I still have him is I sent him off to my brother and gave it to him as a gift. And then years later, he gave it back to me as an adult, all vacuum packed, each piece individually, so it was well preserved. And so out of all the toys I have, that's really one of the only ones, that and a few other Micronauts at the time that were at my uncle's house, that survived my childhood. So everything else pretty much has been rebought or repurchased at some point in my life. So there's my sad sob story for today. All right, so let's move on to the other figures. You know what? I did not cover Trapjaw. Trapjaw. Now, Trapjaw I thought was awesome. And of course, in the commercial, they showed him going down a string. So I had the string. I had the hook and the string and tried to run him down. The hook, though, was kind of rubbery. It always catch on the string. Now, in the comic, they always showed the string going through his head right here. But I had the string. It never really worked too well. Where is your weapon? Now, as a young adult, I did make some cool weapons. This is one of them I made. And I always liked this one in the cartoon. Now, this is actually made from rubber grapes. As you can see, they're squishy, squishy, squishy. My wife had a wreath that she had hung up, and it had these black grapes on it. So I took this piece right here, was from a grappling hook from G.I. Joe. This was from the piece of Snake Mountain that holds the net up. This is from my kids' Connects toys. And then I took some O-rings and just kind of wrapped them on there, and then kind of glued it all together, and kind of dremeled this to fit. And so that's what this was right here, is I made this later on so I could have the cool gun thing. Now, I've made many since then that are all 3D printed, but this was the one I made originally. Let's see, did you collect any FOMO toys? No, I did not. See, the only toy I have left from my childhood is my Matchbox. Yes, the Matchbox. Yes, those were cool. Cool. All right, what else do I have in here? I never had an Orko. I never really liked Orko for some reason. Sorry, dude. You were not one of my favorites. I used to despise him on the cartoon. I thought, he's ruining the show. He's ruining the show, man. I want a Conan the Barbarian show like the comics. I don't need some childhood little guy going boop, 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 boop. So, yes, he used to drive me crazy. You know, I like the whole Thundar the Barbarian thing, right? There was no little weird guy in there. He was just out and causing mayhem. Anyway, I think that is pretty much it. I mean, I have some other figures here, but these are the newer ones. They're not from my childhood at all. There was something else I was going to tell you guys, but now I don't remember. I do not remember. There we go. Yeah, I already showed these. Never had these. These were after I was at figure collecting, so I never had these guys. My friend's little brother had him. Thought he was cool. Who's better, Orko or Lukey? I actually like Lukey better than Orko. But Again, crazy, crazy. All right, trying to refresh my memory. What was it I was going to talk about? All right, anyway, I do have some other stories to tell you. I'm not going to do it in this video. I am going to tell you how I came up with the name Hebro, how Hebro existed, and how I actually created the character Hebro, but that'll be for a different video for a different time. Loki is terrible. Oh, that is funny. Nice. Let's see. So, I guess that is it for now. Like they say in the 1987 movie, there is my He-Man. He is buried alive. Buried alive, man. You know, I just say it myself. I don't need him to say it. Good journey, you guys. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you next video. And if you haven't seen it yet, check out my background video. Hey, look, there's Roger Sweet. Oh, that last picture showed the book that had his original figures in it. Anyway, check out my background video. It's all these back here. And it's kind of a fun video with lots of cool music and stuff. Anyway, thanks for joining me, and I will see you guys next video. Bye now. Where is that off button?